This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
To tell you though, the beard, love it. You keep it tight, right?
My beard is extremely thick. I don't know about yours. My hair on top is not, dude. That forehead just keeps going.
Okay, so hold on a second, because I have a legit question, and I'm not trying to like beard shame / bald shame anybody, but I'll tell you, this is a legit situation in my life. Mm-hmm. I've known people that for awkwardly extended periods of time that have only seen me in a hat. So the first time I pull my hat off, like I have a head full of hair.
Oh,
right?
Dude, I know. I hated that about you the first time I saw you. I was like, man, you have a great beard and great hair.
Well, and that was the thing though. People thought that I was
you were bald.
They are like, I 100%, watched like it happened a couple of times. Like even Gary, part-time host and producer, when he comes on, he didn't know for like a solid 6 months that I wasn't bald. I just wear a hat when my hair gets beyond like the first week of haircut. I have like mental issues around it, but people assume that if you have a beard, you're bald.
I remember when the first time I met you, when you had a hat on for most of the time, and then you took your hat off and you had that full head of hair, and I was like, God dang it. Some people just get it all, you know?
This is Alec Cantrell that you're listening to, host of the One More Minute podcast, known for inspiring, thought-provoking conversations. This is thought-provoking. He's a natural storyteller with a creative vision for connecting diverse perspectives from Georgia, a little Southern charm, later lived in PA and in Central Florida now. Father of two. And he's bringing his personal experiences out here for all of us to hear through the people in these moments. And again, welcome to the Tragedy Academy, a show created to bridge societal divides in a judgment-free zone using candor and humor. Alec, tell me what it's like to have the life of a man with a beautiful beard and no hair. No, I'm kidding. How you doing, brother?
I'll be honest with you. It's what I got. Dude, thanks for having me on the show, man.
Great song, too. What I got?
Big fan of what you're doing here. And man, life with the beard and like little hair just means I wear hats a lot, you know? Like I got to get a good hat investment going on.
So you haven't embraced it yet, huh?
No, actually, hey, welcome everybody to my wife and I's consistent conversation. Welcome to like our personal life right now.
Well, you know what? Though? You're doing something I would never do. Is have at one point in time I would never even have this conversation. But we've had conversations offline where you're very, very enlightened to yourself now, and that you're finding out those parameters for what you can accept in public, especially with a podcast.
Well, you know, I think everybody goes through the stages of grieving and mourning in different ways and different times, right? And there was definitely a stage where I mourned my hair and I pretended like it wasn't happening.
You pretended?
And you know, dude, and I will say this, there is stuff out there you can do. You can do, and I tried it for a little bit. You can do hymns. You can do like all the treatments and all that kind of stuff.
What the hell is hymns?
Those
are what you sing in church, right? I love the idea of singing I'll fly away so my hair grows.
Yeah. I tried that too, dude. I was just praying for hair. I don't know. God, this is my cross to bear.
Prayer.
But dude, you know, at the end of the day, it's just not, I'm kind of forgetful, to be honest, man. Like I just am bad at sticking with something like that for a long time. And I'm at the point now where I'm totally cool. I'll shave my whole head. That's just who I am. You know what I mean? I think I'll get past it.
But you have a head for
my wife's
cool
at
look.
A different stage of mourning right now, you know?
Really?
So she's not ready
Is she
for me
pushing
to
back?
A little bit, but you know.
She's not trying to put you on a plane to Turkey, is she?
Dude, No, I don't know. You know, what's funny. I don't think I would ever do that. It just looks painful, you know?
I haven't watched how it's done, but I've seen this sea of heads on a plane.
Yeah, on the airplanes. You know what's taken over my TikTok feed right now is not so much the Turkish like stick and poke or whatever it is, but the toupees. Like nowadays, apparently, I'm not doing that, by the way.
They're next,
but
that's next level shit.
Apparently toupees have like come back, and there's like these boutiques and salons and stuff like that will full on do like a crazy, like good toupee. Like it changes it, dude. But I also don't feel like I'm going to look that much different, hair or bald. I feel like this is who you got, guys.
I'd like to say that, you know, people won't embrace that. They obviously will. And it's funny. During the pandemic, there was a phenomenon that I loved. I absolutely loved the fact that after a certain amount of time, people stopped giving a fuck how they looked. Right. And even more so, something else happened that I don't know how you interpret it in this day and age, right? Or the filter with which someone's going to hear what I'm about to say. But my intent is to highlight that women suddenly looked natural. You saw it all across the internet. You saw it with your family. It was unfiltered faces. And I can't tell you how beautiful they all looked. And it was like meeting all the women around the world the first time.
Mm-hmm. It definitely, it is. It's so interesting. Like what putting like, obviously like the COVID side of it, but just the quarantine aspect of that year, what that did to people, putting somebody like, hey, you're either by yourself or you're with your close family. That's it for months. You start to reevaluate like what's really like important. Also just like what, like, you know, like what do you do? Like, what do you talk about together? Like, I think unfortunately, it either really like it benefited marriages or it like
100%
did the opposite, unfortunately.
No, it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
No matter what, it did what it was supposed to do.
It brought out a lot. That's for sure. Dude, what you're talking about too, though, like I don't know why. I come from a family that my wife says it this way. There's two types of people out there. There's people who are actually willing to be comfortable and buy yourself a pair of sweatpants. And there's people who like relax in jeans. And it doesn't make any sense, you know? But I was that kind of person, dude. Those
two words don't even belong in the same sentence unless it's like Frankie, relax, and you're wearing jeans. Like, I don't even see that.
But I would just like, we would just always get dressed every single day. Like I'd always like put on jeans, put on shirt, whatever. And that's what like what COVID did for me. I was like, you know what? Who cares if I'm like dressed up, if I'm wearing sweatpants or whatever. Dude, I'm wearing sweatpants right now. 100%.
You're really hitting on, dude, gym clothes, gym pants, or gym shorts all the time. Who gives a shit, right? I am all about the waistband. I'm like, you don't get America into fucking flexible waistbands and then ask them to go back to the office. Like, you're going to get a collective F off. Like, you want me to do what? Start dressing like a clown again to go look at each other in the same room?
Oh, man.
You start to figure out how much is repetitive nonsense and mental illness versus what is real. Right. And I think that you hit on something here in the cyclical portion of this is that you're alone with yourself and you get to see patterns. You get to see things that you repeat for no reason, like the clothes. Maybe it's the way that you interact with people. If you're given an isolated moment to repeat tasks, eventually you're like, this is stupid. You know, and I feel like everybody never got the macro look until the pandemic. And this is why it sparked so much creativity and so many different mindsets all at once, was that we were allowed to see if as human beings, we were on a collective bicycle tire when it's flipped over and you're fixing the chain, right? And we're spinning. That's humanity, all on that wheel. And you just do the same thing. You circle it. Get up, go to work, sit down. Mom, stay at home, whatever, they, them, I don't care. whoever it is, repeating shit, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody stuck a stick in the spokes of the tire. And we all went flying off, and we turned around and we looked at it and said, why the fuck are we on a tire?
It's true, dude. Like, it makes you review, like, hey, why am I doing what I'm doing? Well, what's cool, like, even like thinking about when we're talking about, even what we're doing right now, doing a remote show, like the ability for people to say, I think that it's like you're saying, it stuck a stick in the tire or whatever, threw us all off. And we're like, hey, wait a minute. We're in 2020. We're in 2021. Like even for thinking about working, like what's cool to see is so many businesses out there were able to say, hey, you know what? We can trust people to be adults and to get their job done and to be at home. If they're just going to sit on a computer at here at the office, I bet they could do the exact same thing, and we can trust them to do that. I mean, we go down the history rabbit hole. I love history. I love like stuff like that. And I do think that it was just like we were repeating patterns that started from like the early 19th century, 20th century.
We're a manufacturing company. We're designed to make cars, get up for 8 hours, do overtime with homework. It's a widget system. You're 100% correct. Right. At the end of the day, we're trained animals that repeat tasks. That we're Darwin on a bigger, or not Darwin, but we're with the dogs. We just talked about it, Pavlov. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Everything we do is Pavlovian, right? And we don't realize it. We're triggered. We're accused. We have implicit bias that are ingrained in us, right? We're talking about these clothes, right? These clothes that you put on to go to work are a filter for people to view you through. We just don't realize it. Rather than take the time to give them an experience filter with you, you need to go out there first with a vest, tie, and a freaking jacket in order for them to view you at the level with which you want to be perceived, right? Yeah. That's the filter that you need. It's not needed. It's not necessary. And it's something we're repeating for no reason, right? Yeah. If we didn't require that lens to be between us and the person in front of us, they would truly understand who we are. And if they require me to wear a suit in order to take me seriously, they've got their own biases to get through. Right? I call it the missing tooth effect. About fucking 8,000 years ago, when I was about, when I was in the army. I had a friend that we were in the barracks, and stupid shit's always happening in the barracks. It's kind of like college. And it's like college, but run by Playboy. I don't know. It's like not fucking, it's always out of control.
Can't imagine.
So I remember my buddy runs into my barracks room one day, and he's laughing hysterically, and he's got his hand over his mouth. And I remember, I'm like, what's going on? He's like, bro, Clint just threw me the remote control and he broke my front tooth. And I'm like, no, he didn't. Because you're like, broke your front tooth. What are you talking about? Like a little chip or whatever. And he pulls his hand down, and sure as shit, his tooth was not just like little chip. It was like broke corner to corner. So it wasn't like
such an aggressive remote toss.
Yeah, it was, dude. This remote just hit like right on San Andreas tooth fault, right? It hit it and it broke it in half. And I remember I went through levels of comprehension in this, and I stopped at one. And it bugged me for many, many years. But of course, immediately he looked stupid. He looked poor. He looked like he was from some backwoods area. He looked like all these things at once. And this is clearly my problem. Anybody coming back to this? I own this, but just know you've got your own, or it may be the same. Who knows? But those filters went through my mind, but I stopped, and it bothered me because I didn't like that he wasn't those things, but my mind wanted him to be. Where did that come from? How did that seed get planted? Is it just perpetually taking in the same materials and, the way that we perceive things through media or TV or whatever it is?
100%. Yeah.
Right. And now I have this thing where I could be looking at fucking Einstein, and he's missing a front tooth, and he looks like he should be fucking shucking corn. Not that there's anything wrong with shucking corn.
Yeah. No, but I get what you're saying.
Shucker ever, but it did that.
Yeah, I do think, and this can open up for like a bigger conversation too. I think that so much of this, like our perceived idea of people and what certain things should be, obviously, right? Like even leading up to 2020 before that, is a part of like our generation, is a part of the way that we were raised based on the generation before us. And what I think is actually the most unique thing is I really believe, and I think there's obviously some big differences between this new generation, like Generation Alpha and all this kind of stuff.
What it is? My son's an Alpha, I guess.
You know what's crazy is Generation Beta starts this year. So this is a whole new generation that starts this year. That's what I saw.
So my son will be able to be like, I'm technically an Alpha. I'm not you.
Yeah, I'm technically an Alpha. Right, that's actually a cool thing to say, though.
I came first, bitches.
And you should teach him how to say that as soon as possible.
Oh, dude. Actually, he has to get a doc band because his head's a little bit like from the way that he was inside the womb when my wife was pregnant. So it's not like anything like he doesn't have like a fucking trapezoid or nothing, but he's got like this little fucking spot in the back that's making him lean to one side when he's asleep. So it's going to cause a neck problem. So we went to see a specialist. Yes. It's not, they explained to me it's not a helmet. It's a band. It's called a doc band or whatever. And I remember like just sitting there looking at it and I'm like, all I could think in the back of my head was, all right, I come from Gen X. Gen X used words in ways that they were not actually intended. And I can promise you, I can admit, hand to God, I called probably my brother, my cousins, all my friends at one point or another, the R word for special needs. Like every single day. And I looked at my son and I'm like, you got to wear this
and
for how long?
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I actually went like, I think God's punishing him for my crimes.
Dude, I hope that's not how it works, man.
He's got
my poor kids
in the fucking in the helmet.
But dude, what's unique about this, I think is
oh shit.
That, like, we think that way, but what I do think is unique about this new generation, because of factors like COVID, the way that the internet developed in their lifetime. So like YouTube and like social medias and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting now of like, even just looking at the people who rise to like popularity or fandom or even just like, just like influential voices. I mean, like it just wasn't that way 10, 15, 20 years ago, like just an average, like even for like podcasters, for us too. It's like, I think like what's really unique is we're getting into a day and age where I think like podcasts, I know they've been around for a while, but I think they're even in the next couple of years just continue to hold more and more weight. And dude, I don't have any kind of like formal training in media, or like any kind of big leadership accolades, just somebody being real and somebody being like honest and interviewing and getting to know like real people. And that's what I think people like are looking for. Like this generation is looking for authenticity as opposed to, okay, what's the way we've just always been doing it? What is the status quo for successful or whatever, fill in the blank. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you're hitting on some very heavy topics, especially, since I have my son now, I've got to actually pay attention again and get back into the generations and figure out what's going on. But that I firmly believe that we're going through a structural change in how we interpret each other and how we judge each other and how we accept each other based on that generation. I have an analogy that I use where I like to say that Gen Alpha is one of extreme empathy, caring to the highest degree and wants everybody to know they care, right? And they want all the injustices to be righted immediately. They want everything to go the other direction, which is beautiful, right? But it's also completely impossible, right? So I believe that our generation, millennial, and Gen X, we are much like Cyclops in X-Men. I like to say that Gen Z is Cyclops, and that their empathy and the way that they want to change the world is his eyes. And they're burning everything down until what? You give them the proper lenses to view it through. So they can pick and choose what actually needs change and what else just needs to be forgiven to a certain degree, and not for the people that committed the injustices, but for the freedom of the people that were impacted.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah. And too, the thing that I think I've really appreciated about what I think the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and like these younger generations have done right now is they've removed, I think it's partially in them. I think they've removed so much of the judgment that like I think millennials, Gen X or whatever have put on people or certain things. They're like, this is a great example. This is what I was telling you before, and I'm saving it for the show. This is how I got pumped up for today's show. I got on Spotify, I went for a walk, and I listened to Creed. I listened to
Some
Creed.
arms wide open? Were you just out there? I picture you by a retention pond.
I'm 6 feet
a retention
from.
pond, yeah. Out there like this, dude, with your arms wide open, like and just people judging the shit out of you.
Oh, they can do it all they want.
I know.
Which, because it's funny is when I remember when I was little, Creed was like new. I think like in like 90s, early 2000s. Is that when they came out?
Christian band, by the way.
They are. Yeah, they are. And they came out, and I remember loving it as a kid. And then I remember there being like this 10-year span or something like that where it just was not cool to listen to Creed. They're not good, bad music.
I just told you why.
Not great rock. Yeah. Why? Because of the sleeper Christian music?
Correct. POD.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't care what anybody believes in. Art is art. And but there was such a label put on music that was used in a religious tone that it was uncool. And I remember because POD fell in that category as well. It was payable on death. Right. And again, I'm not a religious person, but I remember these because I come from the effing Bible Belt. I'm from Okeechobee, Florida. You heard about things like this because that was what was discussed. It was praise the Lord, pass the biscuits. That was everything that happened there. So you saw things like, they're like, I don't like them rock bands, but I'll tell you, there's this Creed. This Creed is, they're Christians. Give them good folk. I like country, but they're okay.
I agree, but I also think there's like, even with like a band like Nickelback too, like I think people nowadays for whatever reason are more open to.
That's the most controversial band out there. I know.
You can't tell me you've heard a couple people now being like, all right, Nickelback isn't that bad. I'm not saying I'm in love with them, but it is all that to say it's unique right now of how like I think that like whether it's this generation or whether it's just the world right now, I feel like we're getting to a place where people are more accepting of like what it means to be cool or what it means to be like
Engelbert Humperdinck. Is there a problem with that? No, that's super trendy and cool. You like Engelbert Humperdinck or whatever. I'm with you 100%. They're so less judgmental, and it actually holds a higher ranking within, the social hierarchy to be original. To be unique, which is something we should have been celebrating years ago. And
for sure,
bringing up like the way that these generations are changing. I talked to my nephew the other day, and he was kind of explaining, the social dynamic. And he's like, some people don't understand that there's no more bullies. He's like, bullies aren't cool. He's like, if you're a bully, nobody talks to you if you're an asshole. And I remember thinking, when I talked to somebody at the barbershop today, and I was like, they were like, oh, I want to be in this group of guys, comment thread, or this thread of text that you want to be in. And I was like, you really want to do that? I was like, because it's a generation that I'm from that is in this text thread that are saying the most heinous things to each other, joking around and doing all this stuff. And I was like, we used to pull each other's pants down for fun.
Dude.
Do you think
I'd
that
still
would
be on that
survive
stuff,
now?
dude.
Like, you could not wear. I remember for a solid 4 years, and a very awkward amount of time, that if you wore basketball shorts and that shit wasn't tied to everything over your shoulders fucking overalls, there was a chance that you were going to get fucking pants at any location, cafeteria, out in the gym. And it wasn't going to be somebody that disliked you. It was going to be a friend.
Your best friends, dude.
Friend. It's got you out
dude,
there in your G.I. Joe underwear fucking on laundry day. Shaming it up.
I have a crew that I've been, they're friends from college, but we're also a fantasy football crew that we've been together for
that's an unholy
7 or 8 years now.
Do you apologize every Sunday for what happens in that group?
Yeah, honestly, dude, it's my confession every Sunday. No, but
I think we all need
But yeah,
it,
you're
though.
right, dude. The way that we talk to each other is we all get that we're not serious, but it's just fun, dude. But I will say this, it's cool to have I think there's a genuineness. It may not be for everybody, but to have a group of friends that you can be like that with. I've actually on the podcast, on the One More Minute podcast, I had one special with some of the dudes. So you'll see on the Halloween episode, we did the Dead Kings. And I'm trying to do that more because I'm trying to I love having a diverse show and kind of being able to have different guests and kind of having some of those guys from my crew come back because
that's what
it's
you're
just
supposed
fun,
to do.
dude. This is fun. Yeah.
To your point earlier about podcasting becoming something more prevalent again, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a rebirth out of people not dedicating as much time to the man, corporate or political. They're taking it back. These generations are saying, you know what? No more will I work until 11 p.m. No more will I not let you or be held back from mental health help or whatever it is, right? They're sticking up for themselves. And those voices are the most passionate. And those voices are the ones that are usually the most authentic. And that's outside of whiners, malingerers, or something like that who's trying to create something out of a situation. But those voices are the ones that are becoming podcasts, right? They're the wronged, the damned, the whatever. They've gone through a trial, a tribulation that has given them a fire to give back. And those are the podcasters that are going to thrive because they are themselves. They aren't trying to portray what an host is.
Yep.
Right? They're trying to talk to people about what they passionately care about. And the reason why podcasting is so important is it is the single closest thing that you will get to someone in your ear, your best friend. It's closer than your mom. It's closer than your dad. It's closer than your wife. It's closer than anybody because it's right there. You start to buy things and think about what the host would think. Right?
Yeah.
You start to think, oh, my family interaction today was like that host. And I really admire that host. Right? And the more authentic they are, the more ingrained they become in your life because they're sitting in that ear. But there's a double-edged sword here. Right? The onus is on the creator to put out content that's worth a damn. Right? Because if
100%.
you have taken a slice of what is one of the hardest pies to get into, and they have dedicated you 30 minutes to an hour of their time, you better bring them something of substance. I don't care if it's fart jokes. They better be the best fucking fart jokes on the planet, right? You owe it to them. You owe it to them. But I'm saying these creators that have podcasts, that is their onus now, is to sit down and put out something worthwhile and authentic. And I think it'll grow.
Dude. Yeah, I genuinely believe. I have a story with this too that I want to tell. I genuinely believe that for those people who feel led or feel like that nudge to starting a podcast, man, if you can be 100% yourself and take this advice that one of my basically mentors in podcasting has given me, don't give up. If you don't quit,
is it Wayne?
It's Wayne, baby.
It's Wayne,
the Florida man.
We love Wayne.
I love that dude. He's helped me out so much, but he's awesome. But he's told me, and it's great advice. If you don't quit, you win. And listen, here's I'm gonna get into this too, because it's like I don't think that your podcast necessarily, like if you have a unique idea that you love and that you're passionate about, then by all means go for it. But the thing that like I would urge people to not get tripped up on is being like, man, I'm really passionate about this area, but there's already a podcast out there that's similar to this. It's like, no, just like, I think any podcaster, I'd hope, would feel that same way. Of like, hey, you be yourself.
Shirts.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, well, and what we do a very similar thing, like you and I have like doing like the interview, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the story I was going to get into. Like, what's unique is I was thinking about this a couple of months ago, and without getting political or anything like that, it just happened to be this thought that I had during the time of like this election that happened months ago, or whenever this airs like a couple months ago.
Was it man, my stomach hurts? That's all I think about the whole election. Like, this is giving me
that is 100%. That's 100% a thought that I had. But I was just, I actually just genuinely don't really find myself at this day and age finding myself on either party right now. I feel like I'm in the middle, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to find. Yeah, I just wanted to find like good news, like not
that's difficult.
Not even just good news. Like obviously, like I wanted to hear positive news, but I wanted to hear news that I could just tell wasn't being pulled one side or the other. And so I did a search, dude. I was, like Good Morning America to MSNBC to Fox and all this kind of stuff. And no matter which way you slice it, it has that very much of a feel of like, did it feel? I just think people are smart nowadays. I think we're wised up to you're getting paid by somebody. And again, I'm not trying to be conspiracy theorist or anything like that.
No, but I'm not either. But I'm also not stupid.
Exactly. Yeah. But what's unique is this past election, and now whether you like, I'll do both sides. Like whether you like him or hate him, like that interview that Trump had on the Joe Rogan podcast, I think was big for podcasting, and then as well as like Kamala Harris going on Call Her Daddy, that podcast. Like that's a pretty large podcast as well out there. I think one of the top 5 in the
It was a proof of concept for podcasting's capabilities for sure.
Yeah. And so like for both of them, seeing that it's like, I think that's the future. I even did this thing on my social media, and I don't have like this crazy huge following on social media, but this question that I asked got a ton of response. And I just said, hey, politics aside, where do you get your news from today? And I listed 4 options, like media, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, whatever. The second one was newspaper. Guess how many people hit newspaper? 0. And then I put podcasts and then social media. What blew me away was everybody that was really like, I don't know how to put an exact age on it, but let's just for sake of conversation, it's like kind of 40, 45 and up that I knew of, like hit that news, CNN, whatever. Everyone else.
The nightly, man.
Everyone else. It was podcasts and social media. That's where people are looking to nowadays for their information. And I think as us as podcasters, it gives us a weight of responsibility of like, hey, even if I'm interviewing, like besides yourself, another one of my favorite interviews that I've done recently was with this dude who's a 2-time Grammy nominated bass player in the reggae category.
That dude is so cool.
He's so cool.
You know that I'm going to gravitate to any of your musicians, man. I was like, I love reggae, so it's always been a thing. So I was like, I'm in.
Ja David. If you want to look him up, Ja David is awesome. But but like just getting even the best out of a conversation like that, like even I don't personally for my own show, like I have a lot of fun in it and we talk about some fun stuff and we laugh, but I take it seriously to the point of where it's like, hey, there's some useful information that this person has that somebody else may never get that experience or hear this story. Like I want to be able to provide it to them.
It's a lens. It's an experience lens that you acquire without having to go through something with which you can view life and society through. It is our job, our duty to find these individuals, these unique, authentic stories have gone through trials and tribulations. And you remember Benjamin Franklin's bifocals, like that thing where it switched, like, right? We all get those. They're issued at birth. We get a set. They're clear, right? And we're given so many lenses throughout life, through experiences, and we can either A, layer them and leave them there, or B, select when we want to see them, right? Kind of like move them through. But you can never have the view that the person next to you has if they've got 18 green lenses in a row and 3 red, and you've got 7 blue and 4 white, right? Not going to see the same. So what do you have to do? You have to educate and teach that there are lenses, and that you also have to teach what it is that people experience and creates theirs. What's the next best thing to experiencing something? Sitting down with someone that has and listening to it so that you can feel what it was like to go through that experience and have that adaptation within yourself to carry on out into life. Whether it be empathy, whether it be joy, whether it be pain, whatever it is, you earn that filter by sitting through that interview. And that's why I love when you choose the people that you do and the way that you break it down and allow them to speak to who they are. That's important because we don't get many opportunities in life to feel amplified, to feel heard. Just like yourself, I take it very, very personal. Anybody that comes onto the show, I want to make sure that they have the platform with which to speak freely about their experiences, not to feel judged, and to have humor and laugh about life's idiosyncrasies and the BS that we go through and subject ourselves to, right? Yeah. Because that's a whole nother like rabbit hole we could go down about what's created from that. But essentially, I just want to thank you, though, for having the wherewithal to recognize that people do have voices and stories to tell. And you're very gifted in how you approach them and how you filter their stories. So that's my accolades to you and your show. You have quality guests.
Thanks, man.
And you started out top tier branding and clean.
Thanks, man.
That's so important in podcasting. People don't realize, man, you want to rush, you want to get out there on the mic, you want to get in front of people. But dude, unfortunately, the world is full of implicit biases. The world is full of that no-tooth filter, right? And if your podcast is out there looking like shit, or has echoes in the background, or, doesn't have consistency, or the social media isn't cleaned up, guess what? People are looking at you like you got a missing front tooth.
For sure.
Right? You could be saying fucking shit that would solve world peace, right? You could have a working Palestinian state, but the fact that you have a fucking, sounds like you're in a porta potty, you're instantly crazy.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hang around.
This is the tough part for some of these. And I get it. It is an initial investment, for getting started and doing it well and doing all that kind of stuff. But I will say, this is actually something that, and I think we talked about this on my show too. And I think this is great, like advice for somebody listening to this. When I knew I wanted to do this, when I knew I wanted to get into podcasting, I loved it. I'm a big fan of podcasts. And I knew I had like, hey, this is what kind of the niche I want to get into, all of that. I decided that I was like, hey, I'm, figuring through this. I had my goal was like, hey, I'm going to do this right. Like, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it well. That's kind of like, and that's something
it's
that
a personal thing. I'm the same way.
Yeah. My parents taught me that. And like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with excellence. I think that's like, I think that if like, it's come to my parents. I think that's something also just within me and my like personal faith of like, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it with everything that I got and do it with excellence. And so like, I decided that I also had some voices, and this is something that you have to like get to a point in your life where you say, okay, what are the voices that actually hold weight in my life enough to change something? I had a couple voices that told me, hey, dude, don't worry about the branding or the sound or anything like that. Just get started. And literally one person told me like, hey, no one is going to listen to this show for a long time. So you should just get started. And I don't, not upset with that person. I get what his thought process was, but I had made a decision long ago that I said, hey, there's about 3 to 4 people in my life that can, if they told me to not do something or to do it or whatever, I'd listen to them. You know, it's not
it's a tight
20
cluster,
people.
I'm with you.
Yeah, because I think when we open that up to 20, 30 people, then we're just constantly ping-ponging back and
too
forth.
many decisions for me. If you give me too many options, I sit down and play with blocks.
Yeah. Well,
I just
that's
quit.
Why I decided, I did decide that I was like, hey, I'm going to do this right. And it took longer. Like I probably could have started doing a podcast last January or February. And it took me until September. But I feel great that like we got it right. What's cool, like, and you know, we hit a really cool number at the end of the year, only like 17 episodes in. And I'm proud of that number. And I'm just, you know, believing that we've got some more juice in us in this show to keep growing and keep doing some really cool stuff.
This is the beginning of a long legacy that you're going to create.
And dude, it's a baby podcast. You're at 100 and what? Something episodes. I'm 17.
Yeah, something like that. And I had the first edition of the show that was 75 before that. So it's been around for a while, but I hear you. And I like to think about this analogy where, and it holds water in both, in that you can't expect other people to love you if you do not love yourself first, because you have proven yourself unlovable, right? Just like the front door of your house, do you put trash on it and then expect people to come in expecting something better? No. So if your podcast has a sack of trash front door, nobody is going to come in and think it's a speakeasy, right? Nobody's going to come in thinking that it's got, you know, a church in the background with giant cathedral ceilings. You just got to step over what? No.
Yeah.
We're too fast now. We make micro decisions in micro fractions of a second. And if you've got a piece of trash on the front of your podcast, unfortunately, you could be, again, creating a working Palestinian state, but they're not going to listen to you. They're just going to fucking move on. They're going to like, nope, this sounds like a porta potty.
Yeah. Well, and it's exactly what you said too. Maybe in another way is like, you just got to have some confidence in yourself, you know? Like, I am not the coolest person out there. Like I said, I'm not like I don't have any media training experience or anything like that, but I just had a vision and something that I wanted to go after. And like all those people, what they said, trying to be helpful, at the end of the day, they're not the one doing it. You know, they're not the one sitting down, having the interview, reaching out to people. And it was an initial move of confidence for me. And I got to say, like doing something like that, whether it's a podcast or whatever, like for me personally, it's grown my confidence, dude. I'm asking people CBT. Left and right.
It's
like, hey, you want to be on the show?
Therapy.
Yeah.
Doing a podcast, recording yourself, listening to it, finding your own issues in your voice, how you reach out, how you speak in situations, when you need to interject. Those are all childhood traumas showing up in different ways during conversations. You sit down, start recording your own voice and editing it. After a while, you start to come out of your shell, or you stop to give a shit about how many times you said, right? Yeah. Or how many times somebody else did, because then you realize that there's not a single conversation on the planet that goes on like it's written in a fucking book. Never.
Yeah. And if it is, we kind of get stopped. We're like, why is this so perfect?
Yeah, listen. You know? All right, listen, Neil deGrasse Tyson. We realize we're all stupid. He's the only one that can pull that off, where you're like, okay, he's naturally talking like a fucking thesaurus right now. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. Like, come on, dude, help me understand some of this.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, I think that you do find yourself along the way in the process of creating anything, if you're truly invested in it. And if you do come across people that are friends, say they're not in that circle, evaluate the advice you get from these people binary, like one or two. Did they give me a limitation, or did they give me praise or direction or support? If they gave me a limitation, not that they're trying to that they're trying to create an issue for you. They're actually trying to prevent you from doing what they don't have the ability to stand up and do themselves in their own way. A lot of times what we'll do is hand that off. We'll say, oh man, that's really hard, right? Like, dude, you might not want to do it that way. It's really difficult. That's going to take you a long time, right? But they might as well be looking in the mirror.
Yeah. And dude, I'm an optimist. I believe that like everybody out there, and I know I'm wrong, but I want to believe that everybody out there is just doing, they're doing their best. They mean stuff with a good spirit. Mm-hmm. I think the unfortunate part is so many people are just so quick to say whatever. We're just so quick to throw words out without realizing how much weight words hold, Mm-hmm. And so that's why, like, I don't know if that's going to stop anytime soon. I think that may just be human nature. That's why I think as a person with wisdom or a leader or whatever you want to call yourself, like, I think you should be able to take that and be able to set on it and process it for a while, rather than doing the exact same thing they did, where they just spewed words out and meant well, but it was kind of like a dagger. Dude, I had...
That's wisdom, right?
To show you the impact of this, when I was in college, I spoke at... I went to a Christian university here in town, and I spoke at one of our like chapel services. And dude, I was like 19, 20 or something like that. And I thought I did an okay job. I did good. Like I prepped for it. I trained for it. I felt good about it. At the end of it, one of my leaders came up to me. I'll never forget. He said, "Hey man, that was good." He was like, "Yeah, you kind of have this like awkward vibe thing going for you." And I was like,
"Fucker,
what?" I was like, "Oh." He was like, "Yeah, this is kind of like your thing. Like you got that awkward thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And for a while, dude, that messed with me. For a while, I let that set with me, and I took on that persona.
It was meant to mess with you,
right? I took on that persona of like, "Oh man, I'm awkward," like maybe I'm awkward or whatever. And so, anyways, like I got to a point though later where I'm like, you know what? He said something super flippant. Maybe he meant like awkward, funny, whatever. I don't know, but it just was wrong. My thing is like the way I process it, I need to be better about how I process this in the future to like not let it affect me, but let it like say like, okay, not something that I need to take with me and carry on for the rest of my life.
Mindfulness about your awareness about the situations when you're speaking to others. And when I say that people are saying that to stop you, slow you down, throw shade, whatever the hell, somebody wants to put on it, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's unintentional. They don't even know. It's a subconscious reaction to give you limitations when you're unable to step over the threshold of what it is that you want to accomplish yourself, right?
Yeah.
That is what we do as humans, because we need to hold a rank and file with each other to our left and right. And to see somebody else succeed you're not mad at the fact that they're succeeding. You think you are, or you're not jealous of their money. You're not jealous. You are actually upset that you don't have the wherewithal to get out of your victim chair, the recliner with the cup holders, stand up, step over that bag of trash, right? And then go get your dream.
Yeah.
Right? It's easier to tell somebody else they can't get theirs to get up and get your own. Right? And that has something to do with podcasting too. Right? Yeah. Everybody's dream is unique. Everybody's dream is unique. We're all puzzle pieces, no matter what. And when you stand up, I think the few people that have a voice that feel called to go into podcasting and talk to people on a grand scale, right? You have a unique position in humanity, and that is that you are calling puzzle pieces to a certain area where they fit. We spend our life walking around the puzzle of life, not knowing if we're a corner, a middle piece, a back piece. We'll force ourselves into so many situations. I'm kind of close to this one, but my right arm always hurts. I'm going to keep doing it. But that podcaster that stands up and says, yo, all red pieces with green leaves over here now, right? Yeah. Hear me. I'm talking to you. Do you feel the color red? Do you think about leaves all the time? Is your favorite thing to do fucking eat green Jell-O pudding? I don't know. Fucking whatever, right?
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that you're a lighthouse for all those people to find their way and be comfortable with themselves. The more authentically we speak out, the license is given to those around us to do the same.
Yeah.
It's not just taking a risk for yourself. It's a risk for your children, a risk for your friends. It's a risk for everybody, only to find out that it was never a risk.
Yeah. There's so many cool things about it, man. And even in the podcast aspect of it, it's like, this thing lives on for a long time. That is what is really cool about it too. Like I see myself doing this show for a very long time. And the cool thing is that even beyond me, what's nice is like these stories of these unique people that I've met, that we've talked through, like they're going to live on for a while. And, like it's there. Like that's cool thing about podcasting too, is like somebody could right now jump back to the very first episode that I did, and see how the show has progressed. And that was a conversation from months ago, which doesn't sound like that long now that I say it out loud.
This has two ways to view this. There is that is immortalized. That story is there, right? And it is out there for people to consume over millennia if they so choose to and learn about this human, right? But I would argue that there is another benefit to this, and it is to the interviewee. And here's what I believe it is. If the interview goes as it should, if the host elicits authentic speech and personality from that person, they are now creating a benchmark that person will need to maintain in life knowingly. Because they will always look back at that interview when they told everyone who they were, how they appreciated life, what their gratitude was, how they think, and you can evolve, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have the ability to look back on the time you were interviewed and ask if you were that person, right? Then you might know that you aren't in that moment now and that you might have to do some reevaluation. Or you could say, look, I grew, right? But that is immortalized there for those guests to go back and look at and say, you know what? I'm not being him right now. I need to reevaluate.
Yeah. It's a cool responsibility to have, like, I don't know if everybody thinks about that and getting into the podcasting or, whether it's audio, visual, YouTube, whatever you're getting into, but there's a lot of benchmarks that you're setting. Like I think about some of the musicians that I've talked to recently who've told me and said on the show, like, look for some live music coming from me here in the next couple of months or so. And it's like, dude, you said it, bunch of people listen to that and they're waiting, and it is a cool thing. It's not to say that like, the show's necessarily only thing is to push you into the right direction. Like, hey, get your stuff done or whatever.
That would suck.
But it is motivating, it's motivating for me. It's motivating for them. And like for me, even as a podcast listener, listening to your show, listening to our guys over at the Florida Band, I listen to a couple of other like shows out there. I take so much of this and I'm like inspired by it for my own show, of like, oh man, the way that you've thought about approaching this, like for you especially, I think you've gotten so, like your show's so great at taking such unique perspectives and lives and drawing out like, I don't know, just like such unique details. Like the people that you've had on there are like, dude, I would have never talked to like was it a voice actor recently, right? Like I would have never, I don't know, maybe I would have never spoken to like a voice actor before and understand that whole process. But, it's cool, man. And like,
we're all real.
Yeah.
We're all real.
What's crazy is I knew I wanted to do podcasting for a while, but the episode that like, I'm going to move this, like this light's getting all in my face. Anyways, the episode, the podcast that like changed so much for me, or just kind of like inspired me to be like, oh dude, like this could be anybody. Like I could interview anybody is, actually the comedian Theo Von. You know who I'm talking about?
Bro, I love Theo Von. He's a
funny
national
guy,
treasure.
super funny. And his podcast I love too, because you're like, dude, he's just being 100% himself. You know what I mean? And he's not like
real.
Yeah. But he did this one interview, dude, and it wasn't a celebrity, wasn't anybody that we'll remember the name of potentially. But it was a New York City garbage man.
I think I've seen part of this.
And dude, I listened to all 3 hours, 3.5 hours of that episode. because I was so amazed. I was like, dude, I never knew the process it took to like, it's hard. It's not easy to become a New York City garbage man.
No, thank you.
Like, and it's so unique too. Cause like, what's interesting where I grew up, garbage man wasn't a career. It was like prison detail was
it's what they threatened you with.
Yeah. And so
like,
to hear it as a career and somebody thriving in it is anyways, but the whole podcast was like, it made me think about afterwards. I'm like, dude, that wasn't a celebrity. That wasn't like somebody who's going to go off and start having a tour afterwards. It was like the dude he ran into at a bar one time. Like everybody has unique stories. I'll never forget me and a buddy of mine. We were traveling up to Pennsylvania actually for me to propose to my wife. And this was years ago, and we stopped off at a random bar in Washington, D.C. We were like, this will be really cool. This is part of our trip. And we sat down at a bar and we talked to this like lady sitting next to us. And, just a normal conversation. Hey, how are you? Whatever. She's like, yeah, I'm just, kind of having my last meal before I head off to Russia tomorrow. And we were like, oh, cool. What are you doing in Russia? And she was just like, I work for the government. And we were like, okay. Like, what do you do for the government? And she was just like, I work for the government. And I was like, we're like a special military or just work for the government. And we looked at each other and we were like, she kills people, like there's no doubt.
She could honestly be somebody that works in a skiff underground, just typing, like fucking code.
Yeah.
Or listening to shit.
No doubt. Yeah. But it was,
that's funny.
It was, wild, dude. But all that to say, it's like, that was just sort of random events of just such a unique person sitting next to us. Dude, I urge people this, and it's part of like the desire for my show, is I hope that hearing conversations like this would urge somebody to put down their phone, and to like, when they're going to get their coffee or whatever, would like put down their phone, see the person next to them, and just start up a conversation, dude. You have no idea like how unique that person is, like next to you and what their story is. Dude, Ja David, the guy that was the 2-time Grammy-nominated bass player, I'd seen him at the coffee shop all the time, and I just finally started up a conversation and learned that he does that. It's crazy.
You never know. There are more creators behind the scenes than there ever are in influential positions or fame. Yeah. And being a podcaster and music, producer and voice work, I now have a lot greater respect for all those roles. All of the amazing creators that put together things that are used in order to give a final product. Those are the special people that really put seasoning in soup. Like, you can have soup, but if you don't have like salt, pepper, rosemary, thyme, whatever it is, then it's fucking, what are they, we're talking about Russia, like goulash or some shit.
That's the goulash, dude. That's what she was, that's why she was there, dude. She was trying to get one good meal before she ate.
Fucking poke somebody with a fucking
broth for another year.
I've seen this movie. Usually somebody's hanging with their wrists and they've got like, jumper cables and they're getting them. Oh, wait a minute. That's like every movie that Mel Gibson was in the 80s.
Yeah. I only, whenever you say that, I only think about The Office, because that's how my brain works like 99% of the time, of like the company picnic where he announces that branch is closing and she's like, who told you? He's like, David Wallace, but dude, that just alienated half the audience that doesn't listen to doesn't watch The Office.
I don't care. Go look it up. Like, all my jokes are not going to be for everybody. All of my reminiscence will not be for everybody. Right? Yeah. I don't want somebody to tell me what I know. Yeah. That ship has sailed. Like, tell me something unique about yourself, something nobody else knows. Right? Tell me something that is going to give me what seasoning you have. Right? And you can leave seasonings behind. You can meet fucking coriander or some shit like that and be like, dude, coriander tastes like shit. Coriander always has stink face. Coriander uses, this type of language. Coriander appears to be a bigot. That's okay, though. We know that coriander exists now and we can avoid it, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know until you have a conversation with it, right?
Well, dude, I don't know how to put a good, you're the king of the analogies here, but I don't know how to put a good one to this. But even there are people who you think are unique for one thing that have like so many more layers to them that when you sit down with them for an hour, like you learn. So one of my first guests, a good friend of ours, business owner here in town, her name is Julie Chernick, owns Uliana events and all that kind of stuff. Julie. If you're in the Central Florida area, you need to get married somewhere, Uliana Estates is the spot. But she, so we were talking about her business, but she is a first generation American too. Like her family came over from Ukraine. And we started getting into that like story just kind of randomly on the show. And I mean, her business stuff is super interesting. Very cool how she went for a dream. But that story was like, wow, like you just don't think about like people's experiences of coming over here. And it's like, oh, your mom and dad don't speak the language. You got to learn English on your own.
That's
like I never thought about that. Like, what is that like growing up? My
wife is first generation American from a Colombian and Italian. Her mom is from Italy. It's a small farming town, and then her father is from Bogota. And they've told her. Actually, my father-in-law was on the show. He talked about his travel from Colombia to here, how he was a street baller in New York City for a while. Just living and learning the language and all that kind of stuff. Amazing backgrounds, but there and again, you don't get to know somebody by looking at the end product, right? Like you can love soup or whatever meal it is that you're eating, right? But you want to know what's in it.
Yeah.
And you don't truly know what you're eating until you know what's in it. And that's those questions behind there. How many cups of flour go in you? Right?
Yeah.
How many cups of awesome are in there? Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say you got 2 cups of awesome, right? You, Alec. I appreciate you. I would, like 2 scoops of Raisin Bran shit, right? You got 2 scoops of awesome. I genuinely appreciate you. I want to give you a second to let everybody know where they can find you and what they can expect when they come and listen to your show, and then kind of wrap it up.
For sure, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for this time, dude. I'll be on your show any day, man. You're welcome. I love what you're doing. In
studio. We talked offline. We're doing a remote today, but he's going to come in studio, sit down, hang out whenever you want to.
We need to get all the podcasters in our area together. I think it'd be like so much fun.
Absolutely love it.
Well, hey, like you can obviously like follow along with the show on, Spotify, on Apple Music, on YouTube. It's just 1 More Minute podcast with Alec Cantrell. I think like for what I'm really going for the show is so much of what we just talked about today. I'm just finding like unique people in my area and abroad that just have some awesome stories. I genuinely believe like what's cool to me is like the people that invest time, like, this as a podcaster, like it's different than I appreciate music so much, but it's different than saying, hey, would you listen to my 3-minute song? It's like, no, hey, would you set aside an hour and a half to listen to me and someone else talk? But I do. I think that everybody should have at least one podcast.
We think in the beginning that everybody's going to listen to our shit. And then people will tell you they did. And then you start seeing the guilt on their faces when you run into them because they haven't. And sometimes they start to lie, things like that. But what you don't realize is they have no business listening to your shit yet because you don't even believe in your shit yet.
For sure, yeah, dude. It's like, it's funny when they say that and you're like, dude, I see the metrics. What are you talking about?
I have 2 downloads.
Like, come on, Mom. Just listen to the show. I love that.
I remember
come on,
like
Mom.
That.
Just listen to my show. No, but I am proud of like we have a cool, like for everybody listening that's already like a part of the audience, dude, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And for people that are going to check out the show, man, it's very similar, I think, to what you're getting here. Just some really unique experiences and people. I try to have fun too. Obviously, like we're doing some really deep interviews. I have a couple coming out here, like one that I'm recording here in the next week with a guy who's been he's qualified for he's a Olympic runner. I say that in like, he's qualified for the Olympics. He had a pretty crazy like injury that kind of barred him from that, but just cool to see his story and some other really cool ones that I'm planning for ahead. But then also some fun ones, dude. I got my fantasy football guys that come through and we just like joke around and tell stupid stories and stuff like that. It's me. Yeah. And that's what I'm hoping for. I really just want to have like just authentic conversations that I think one week, I hope that you learn a lot. The next week, I hope that you laugh a lot. And I hope that we continue that going. And so,
I love that model. I have detention episodes that we do the same thing. We act like fools. Yeah.
You got to have some of that. It keeps it fun, man. On social medias, though, it is One More Minute Podcast. I think both on IG and TikTok. And so, guys, I'm a baby show. It's still growing. We're on getting into episode 20. And so I'm working through getting better at social media and all that. But I hope that you'd
20
join on the journey.
Is worth a lot.
There we go. I love it.
All right, man. I thank everybody for listening as always. And thank you again, Alec, for giving us your time and being a lighthouse for others to find their way. That authenticity is something we give license to others to be themselves. So thank you very much. And remember, everybody, be cool and keep learning.